1. So I love animals. I have 5 back home with my mom, but I'm living in another city because of my grad school, and since I will be traveling a lot once the pandemic ends, I cannot adopt right now. However, me and my partner decide to become foster for an NGO that rescues cats. We'll only have 1 cat at a time, and our first is a female cat named Smoke. So Smoke is a lovely cat. She is about 1 year old, loves to play, cuddle, and is in general an easy animal. Even though she's been through so much, pregnancy, lived in the streets, etc. Once she had recovered from her neutering surgery, we in the NGO started to put her up for adoption. She is a grey cat, which is rare here. So in her first day, we already had 1 person interested. The couple, Katie and John, reached out to me after chatting for a little bit, and asking questions, they asked to meet her. We set up a date, and when they came here, they completely fall in love with her. They already have 4 cats and seem to know much about the challenges of adopting an adult cat to a new environment, with other cats as well. So we decided that they were the ones. She goes to her new home on Monday and everything seems okay. She was getting used to the new owners and was being kept in a separate room. Not even a week goes by and Katie messages me saying that Smoke is being aggressive to her other cats, which are all female, and she wants to return her. I tell her that she probably made the introduction too soon and to separate them again and wait a little longer. She agrees and sends me videos of them, the cats, eating together, and overall Smokey seems to be more relaxed. So I assume everything is okay. A few days later, she messages me again, saying that she and her husband have been fighting a lot because Smoke is always trying to get the other cats. And her cats don't fight back, so they were getting hurt. She says that she is getting worried and that she would like to return the cat and again begs me to take her back and not go back to the streets. I sent her a long text about how if she gave her up, I don't know if I can keep her here again, which was true, and although she may think that it wasn't abandoning the animal, she pretty much was. I also said that 2 weeks is barely time for a stray to adjust, specifically with other cats, and that Smoke was already doing fine with their dog, they also have a dog, so she probably wasn't aggressive. She was crying a lot when she told me all that, but agreed with me once again and kept the cat. This was during the weekend, and on Monday, exactly 2 weeks since they have gotten her, I receive another audio of her saying the same thing about how she was absolutely stressed from the situation. I didn't try to convince her this time since I could see she couldn't handle the situation, and just scheduled with her to get the cat back. I talked to my significant other again, and he agreed to let her stay here. When Katie came, she was bawling her eyes out and saying that she was sorry, and couldn't do it anymore, although I was a bit angry with her for giving up too soon. I was polite, and just took Smoke, and all the things she had bought for her. She donated those items. Another week goes by, and surprise, surprise, I received a text from both her and her husband asking if they could have the cat back, because they have been missing her and thought they'd give it another try. This time with a cat expert to guide them through the introductions. Saying I was mad is an understatement. I had a lot to think about, so I just told them I'd give them an answer the following day. I spoke to the NGO, and they were also shocked that she would even ask that, and said that they agreed with my decision not to let her have the cat again, and to talk to her since I was the one closer to Katie. So I sat down and wrote a long text detailing the reasons for why I wasn't going to return the cat to them, basically saying that although I thought they had good intentions, they were clearly not ready to deal with the situation, plus I didn't want to risk having Smoke go through this whole thing again to later get returned again. I also told them that they may regret their decision, but unfortunately, it's something that they'll have to deal with. I asked her to not contact me again, which she did, because I was afraid she was going to be persistent. You guys, she lost it. She immediately went to talk to the NGO, and they tried to tell her as nicely as possible that they weren't going to change their minds, but she wasn't having any of it. Sent me a text telling me that I didn't even give the cat a chance, said I was clearly crazy and cold-hearted. What? Wanted to put the NGO on blast across social media, and they were afraid of that, since they're small and depend on reputation. I thought that the Karen of it all was going to end there, but no, she threatened to call the cops and say she just left the cat with me because she was going on a trip and I stole it. The audacity of this bitch. I freaked out a bit because I have since deleted our WhatsApp conversation and was trying to recover it. She even contacted her DA friend and told her the same fake story, and her friend spoke directly to the NGO's attorney in defense of Katie. but I found some screenshots of her saying she was surrendering the cat to us, and the DA apologized and backed off. This all happened yesterday, and I don't think she's going to try to do anything else, but who knows. Moral of this story, never delete your WhatsApp conversations because it'd just be crazy. 2. I worked in a private airport in Florida for the uber rich. All of our clients were multi-millionaires or richer for a few years. 1. Within my first few months of working there, I got fully mooned by a multi-billionaire. He was putting something in the trunk of his car, and I happened to look out the window just as he bent over, exposing a solid 3/4 of his ass. A co-worker who was outside with the client at the time saw it too, although from a much less direct angle, and said client didn't care at all that he had just essentially exposed himself to around 5 people, possibly because all of them either worked for him directly or for the airport. 2. Private airports are generally pretty small, and this one was no exception. The single runway was less than a mile long and very narrow. I had to, on several different occasions, explain to people how numbers worked, because they insisted that they would be able to land their plane at the airport with no problem whatsoever, except their plane's wingspan was bigger than the width of the runway, and a quick Google usually told me that their aircraft also had a longer stopping distance than we could provide. Usually, I would end up asking the clients, or more often the client's assistants, to have their pilots call me, as I knew that those people at least understood how wingspans versus runway width work. One client in particular called back about 5 or 6 times, absolutely insisting that he could totally land a jet with a wingspan of 16 feet wider than our runway, until I finally managed to get him to look at our website so he could see the palm trees and other hazards dotted along the runway. 3. It wasn't all bad though. One day in the summer of 2020, I was working by myself, slow traffic day, when a small jet came in. I went out to help unload luggage to see if the pilots needed any services. The client was making polite conversation while I got his bags in the car, and I mentioned that I had just gotten back to work after being furloughed for several months due to COVID. He immediately pulled out his wallet and gave me a $100 tip, and said he was glad I had been able to come back to the airport. That wasn't the only 3-figure tip I got there, but it was the most memorable. 4. One time a very famous singer flew in for a day trip, which got all of our crew very excited, save for the managers who had met him before. He was super nice and chatted with our ground crew guys for a while when he landed. When they were getting ready to leave a few hours later, I headed out to ask the pilot if they needed anything, ice, newspapers, etc., and got to meet the client as well. I asked him how his trip was, and he very enthusiastically told me about the great Reuben he had for lunch, which is all I can think about now when I hear his music. 5. Another singer came one time to do a private concert, and I was explicitly warned ahead of time that he was on thin ice at our establishment, and if he did anything that I or my crew didn't like, we were to report it to the head of the department immediately. Apparently, the first time he had visited, he had been really rude to the lovely ladies who worked the front desk at the attached hotel, and we had a strict no abuse of the staff policy. Only place I've seen where that was actually enforced. The singer was apparently much better behaved on his second trip, as I never heard more about it. 6. Nothing will ever give you a rush of power and adrenaline like telling an uber-rich person no, and instead of them getting pissed, they start to beg. We had a very limited number of jets that could land every day, which meant reservations for holidays filled up very far in advance. I always worked Christmas Day because the furthest our clients could book a trip was 1 year. So as soon as the terminal opened at 8 a.m., the phone was ringing with people making reservations for next year. I had many a phone call with desperate billionaires trying to fly in on busy days, only to be told they were 30 deep in the standby list. And if anyone complained too much, they were escalated to the head of the department, occasionally all the way to the president, and no longer my problem. 3. Hello there. I'm here to tell you the story of my first known Karen in many years. The last was about 12 years ago. This happened the other day. Me and my husband had to stop at a general store yesterday for some diapers and cat food. So I went in, and while shopping was uneventful, the time came for me to check out. The thing you should know about this particular store is its system is outdated. It's one of those old ones where you had to key in every item. The other thing is they have been having recent issues with this system. It will either freeze and force the cashier to reboot, or it will reboot on its own, all randomly. This entire system I find odd, as they have it modded to allow for the new chip cards to be used. Well, as I was paying, guess what the damn thing decided to do? Yep. It randomly rebooted. Now, this is where Kathryn comes in. She stands much further than 6 feet behind me, and I can hear her making impatient noises as we're waiting for the system to fix itself. So while the cashier and I are talking and waiting from behind me, I hear in a very impatient tone of voice, "Is there something wrong with the register?" And when informed that yes, there was, and that the system rebooted itself instead of simply being patient, like everyone else, she drops her basket of items and says, "Well, I'll just come back later. I have things to do," and storms out the door. A nice going lady, like it's the cashier's fault their checkout is from the 90s. I turned to a girl and asked, "Is it just me, or did we actually see a real-life Kathryn?" Funny thing is, not long after she stormed out, the checkout fixed itself, and I was able to get my things. This lady was so impatient and rude, and her time was so much more important than everyone else's, and if she had just stayed and been patient, she'd have been able to make her own purchases. To quote that cashier, "Some people are just really rude." 4. I rent the downstairs of a 2-story house. My landlord is pretty diligent and good about taking care of stuff around here, and just paid $6,000 to have the driveway paved so parking could be easier. The home next door is a giant house with a few apartments and a single-lane driveway for 2 cars that leads to the backyard. But one of the tenants owns a bunch of cars, 5+, and a giant repair plow truck, and is always doing work day and night on these cars, ignoring noise ordinances and using drills and floodlight, and letting the apartment look like a junkyard, so just an overall asshat. Because of all the cars and miscellaneous garbage, the tenants have to switch cars around every day so that the big truck can get in and out of the parking spot and everyone else can find parking at any given time around his crap. There is a short fence between our 2 driveways made of metal piping that's been there for 50+ years to divide the driveways. But when we had our drive paved, he paid to have someone come and rip it out. I didn't even notice anything, but my landlord noticed big tire tracks on the fresh pavement and in the backyard, and noticed the fencing gone. When she asked the neighbor, he boasted that now we have our driveway paved, it's easier for him to park and maneuver his truck around, so he had all the fencing taken down, so he can use our backyard to turn his truck around and park in our driveway. My landlord was stunned that he just decided on his own that he would be parking in our backyard and in our driveway. The pavement is only a few inches thick, so his truck would crack it relatively easily. And his truck will certainly create tracks in the backyard come spring when the ground is soft, not to mention that he just does not live here. So I come home last night and the landlord is outside with her fiancé putting up this ugly chicken wire fencing, and regaled the whole story to me and told me to tell her if anything happens. Well, I come home from classes today and the guy is outside and runs over when I come home and starts cussing me out for putting up a fence and telling me we need to take it down and pay him for half of the cost of removing the old fence. I didn't even know what to say. I just let him know that's not happening and he doesn't have permission to use the driveway or our yard. Well, while I was inside, he ripped out all the fencing we put up. I called my landlord and she is now dealing with the police and she wants to take him to court and yada yada. I'm just flabbergasted at the absolute brazen entitlement to using our yard and taking down stuff that is on our property. I didn't even think people like that existed. 5. A few years ago, I worked at an elementary school as a computer lab parapro. When I was hired, I was told that I would maintain the computer lab, help students in the lab, have lunch duty, and recess duty. I never worked at a school before, so I had no idea where to start. This was exactly what my coworker Kathryn liked. On my first day, the principal handed me off to Kathryn and told her to teach me the parapro ways. Our room had a few desks, but I was led to a cheap plastic chair that was my official spot. I put my bag under the chair and my coat on the back of the chair. The rest of the parapros had desks and chairs. She showed me folders of teaching materials and informed me I would be instructing students and needed extra help. When I asked about the computer lab, the main reason I was hired, I was told it wasn't my main job. Red flag. There were 3 other parapros at the time, an older lady, a pregnant lady, and 1 guy. The women seemed to be her backup crew. The guy didn't care about the drama, and usually would do his own thing. I didn't really think anything was wrong at first. I believed my chair was the best they could find for me. I tried to think positive. I did horribly with the teaching group I was assigned because I had a technology background, not a teaching background. The teaching material they gave me was confusing, so I took it home and studied diligently. The older parapro helped me quite a bit, though. I could tell she was against it. After a bit, Kathryn would tell me to take her study group as well as mine because she had so much work to do. She'd disappear and wouldn't reappear for hours, usually with a drink from a fast food place in hand. I would leave the room only to come back to overhear the 3 women badmouthing me, Kathryn laughing the loudest at each comment. The guy parapro walked out once, saw me outside the door, and just shrugged like, "It is what it is." I didn't feel like I belonged. I still hadn't been in the computer lab much either. After a few weeks, I went to the principal and said, I was hired as a computer lab parapro. I've been in the lab once. It took some convincing, but he finally talked to Kathryn. She did not take it well. Later on, I was told she was pissed. "She tattled on me. Can you believe that? What the fuck, right?" The next morning, Kathryn led me to the computer lab. "I hear you're abandoning your study group. You're putting a strain on us, you know. The kids are also going to hate you." I explained that I was hired to be in the lab. This is my place. She went to an end table and pushed everything to the side. "I guess this is your spot now. Don't worry about coming back to the parapro room. You won't be needed." When recess started, the pregnant parapro walked in the door and announced to me and the class inside, "You're badly needed in the computer lab, I see. We're understaffed, but don't worry about recess duty. Stay here like you want." She rolled her eyes and left. I shrugged and kept helping kids. Every day, Kathryn and the pregnant parapro made little comments, but I did my best to ignore it. The older parapro at least stayed quiet and did help me out from time to time. I fixed 6 computers that had minor issues on my first full day in the lab. I cleaned all the keyboards, monitors, and desks. They were truly disgusting. 6 classes would come through the lab each day, 6 pairs of hands on each keyboard and mouse. Then I replaced all the broken headphones. New headphones were just sitting in a locked closet for months. I was able to finally interact with the teachers. I asked what the last computer lab parapro did. Apparently he only did lunch duty and not recess. He didn't fix much, but would be the main contact when it came to submitting tickets to IT. That's why nothing around the building was fixed. I sent out an email and asked all the teachers if anything in their classroom needed attention. I was able to deal with 90% of broken tech around the school and sent IT tickets for the rest, which got me on almost everyone's good side. After a week or so, Kathryn was back at my door. "I'm so busy. Can you take over my recess duty? I just can't today." I agreed. I found that I had more time since I had fixed and deep cleaned everything. I willingly did recess and lunch duty from then on. I didn't mind it. Kathryn showed up during recess and lunch less and less. I would ask the other parapros where she was, and they'd shrug. The pregnant parapro left for maternity leave and then got a job at another school. The older parapros started to come around to my side, because we were understaffed for real this time. Kathryn wasn't just putting her work on me, but on everyone. I didn't find out what she was so busy with until I had to take a kid to the office for a scraped knee. I saw her through the library window, loudly talking on the phone with her husband, while sitting on a couch with a Diet Coke. The library was locked up due to construction, but her BFF, the secretary, gave her a key. She felt she could hide in there without being disturbed. Kathryn forgot to hide from the windows, though. I decided not to say anything. I may have caught her during a break. Then I witnessed the same thing quite a few more times, though she wasn't always on the phone. She was friends with the janitor. They'd both chill on the library couch with Diet Cokes and chat. One time she was reading a raunchy novel, another time she was straight up napping. Then she got a promotion and became the media clerk for the library, which was about to open up. This made things worse as the computer lab is connected to the library. We were told to work closely together. Karen took this as a better excuse to slack off. I have to maintain the library just like you have to maintain the computer lab. I can't go outside or do lunch duty at all now. The entire wall that connected to the library from my lab was glass. I could see her desk and monitor. She was always on Facebook or shopping online. Classes would be in the library, and she would continue web surfing. She would stomp into my lab while I had class and tell me to help kids with testing and assignment in the library. She knew I wouldn't refuse to help kids. I would run between the two rooms while she did nothing. A few times I actually had to say no. Hell broke loose those days. I could hear her shouting, I have work to do, but I have to help kids since the lab is more important. All throughout the building. Usually when she passed my door. I did increasingly say no to her, though. A few months later, Karen joyfully announced that she was going to leave for a better job that paid more. I was extremely happy when she was gone. I became closer with the older parapro, who finally told me things said behind my back. Karen had badmouthed me to all the staff. She would actively try to get me fired by reporting to the principal everything she found undesirable about me. Though teachers backed me up, which pissed her off. Karen found joy in seeing me work my ass off while she drank her Diet Coke, and would brag about it to the other parapros. They were getting increasingly more upset she wasn't working each time. Then the older parapro told me that Karen was texting her from her new job. She complained about the lack of breaks and always being on her feet. Her phone was buzzing constantly with Karen complaints, which we would laugh over. The older parapro became quite a friend. The library was left without a media clerk for 2 months into the summer break. I cleaned her desk area, which was riddled with trash. I got a look into the library storage and found bowls filled with soup and other food, a few mugs that still had drinks in them, open Diet Coke cans and fast food cups, bags of snacks that were open and spread about. I slightly took over the library so that I could at least return the very few books that were checked out. It's like she never informed the kids they could check out books. I put them back on the shelves, though her system confused me. After summer break, we had a new media clerk who swore up and down because nothing was organized. What was the last person doing? They could have at least separated fiction from non-fiction. I adored the new media clerk. She was like the mother I never had. I quit after 3 or 4 years so I could find a better paying job. I got a ton of experience fixing everything at the school, and I was able to find a job paying double what I was making. As for Karen, it's been a few years. Some quick Facebook stalking shows that she quit her great school job and was hired at a senior citizens home. She then left that job and has moved to another state to be a stay-at-home wife. Though her page says she's the CEO of her household. Also, she was apparently in an MLM for a bit. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Idiots in the Wild, episode 41. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories and sent in stories for use in this video. If you yourself would like to send in a story, then please do send it along to kingofthecities@gmail.com. Now, I'm not going to ask you to like today. I'm not going to ask you to subscribe. I'm not even going to ask you to comment. What I'm going to ask you to do is to be my pimps. I really want this channel to start growing again, and quite frankly, it just ain't. And that's ultimately down to a number of factors, partly luck, partly it's probably inconsistency in my uploads. I did miss a couple of months between last year and the start of this year, and my upload times, you'll have noticed, tend to widely vary. Partly the reason, not all the reason, but it's partly the reason, but you guys can actually help. You can help me by aiming out my channel to your friends, your family, send it to Barack and Michelle Obama, tell them I still think they're hot. Oh, don't do that. I shall not do that. Maybe with a chance. And just anyone you might think would enjoy Hellfreezer or narrations, they might like my style or anything I do, and I'm just going to keep doing it. With every video you've enjoyed, pay it forward. Send it to someone else. And we can build this this reading group. We can build this reading group. Okay. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.